Tonight, Monday Night Raw once again takes place from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, inside the WWE Thunderdome. It's the go-home show to Survivor Series this Sunday. It's amazing how quickly these shows creep up on you, isn't it? And a little bit of a programming note, we must say, before we get into this preview for Monday Night Raw. We will be doing a Survivor Series watch-along on Sunday, and then we're going to get back to doing the regular watch-alongs on the channel. I'm still not totally sure whether we're going to do Raw, AEW, Smackdown and pay-per-views, or if we're just going to do pay-per-views. It's kind of still up in the air. We did put a poll up on the community tab, so if you go on the community tab you can vote, and we'll go with basically what you guys want to see. So if you want me to do watch-alongs for every show, go vote for every show. If you want me just to do pay-per-views, go vote for pay-per-views, just Raw, Smackdowns and pay-per-views. Let me know what you want to see and we'll do it here. It's all about what you guys want on the channel, what you guys are interested in watching, interested in doing. So let me know what you think when it comes to watch-alongs. But that's Sunday for Survivor Series. Tonight it's Monday. And we have Monday Night Raw. As I mentioned, it's the go-home show for Survivor Series on Sunday, which of course is Raw versus SmackDown. It's been a weird build. It's been an interesting build, I think, for Survivor Series this year because traditionally, I say traditionally, but basically ever since we've had Raw vs SmackDown back as the Survivor Series theme, it's been a lot of Raw invading SmackDown, SmackDown invading Raw, and that hasn't really been the case this time round. Is that because of the pandemic? Probably. That probably does have a part of it. We did see, of course, Drew McIntyre on SmackDown Friday, which I think factors into maybe what we're going to see tonight on Raw when it comes to the WWE Championship, but it's very interesting, and I'm sure we'll have some more twists and turns before we get to Survivor Series on Sunday. Nevertheless, what we are going to talk about in this Raw preview is the main event, is the match that's really selling this episode of Monday Night Raw. It was announced last week on Monday Night Raw that Randy Orton is going to be defending the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre. Yes, it's a rematch from Hell in a Cell, Clash of Champions, SummerSlam, whatever you want to call it, but the Randy Orton rivalry with Drew McIntyre will be continuing tonight on Monday Night Raw. It's never really stopped. We've had Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre attacking each other. Feels like every week on Monday Night Raw at this point, but after a decision last week announced by WWE official Adam Pearce, Randy Orton will be defending his WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre tonight on Raw. So, there is so much connotations as to what happens in this WWE Championship match tonight on Raw, because of course this Sunday Randy Orton is scheduled to face Roman Reigns, but realistically what it's actually scheduled is it's meant to be the WWE Champion facing off against the Universal Champion, the WWE Champion of Raw facing off against the Universal Champion of SmackDown. So that's what we're going to see Sunday. So at the moment that's Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns, but of course after tonight it could be Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Now, it was announced, as I mentioned, last week on Monday Night Raw. Now, what was really interesting, and I found very, very humorous actually about it, was that when it was announced, and this was actually pointed out by Matthew that does Botchamania, that they had Adam Pearce announce it to Randy Orton that he would be facing Drew McIntyre this week on Raw, and it was announced in the gorilla position on Monday Night Raw. And obviously, the people controlling the Thunderdome were right behind wherever they were filming this, so when it was announced next week you'll be facing Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, you could very distinctly hear someone on headsets shout, "Big pop, big pop, big pop." Next thing you know, wouldn't you know it, the WWE Thunderdome pop. So that was funny. That was rather funny. Now, as I mentioned, Drew McIntyre actually did appear on SmackDown this week and confronted the Universal Champion Roman Reigns along with his associate Paul Heyman. Now, what was very interesting about that, it was just, we'll touch on what actually happened in the segment and maybe what it could mean for tonight for Raw. What I do want to mention about it is the comment made by Roman Reigns of, "I don't watch Raw, nobody does." And Paul Heyman agreed with him, "No, nobody does." Hilarious. I mean, you can't get more of a shoot. That is the biggest shoot you will see on WWE TV forever, because nobody does. Nobody does watch Monday Night Raw. It's so long. It's so long and it's so tedious, and it's just, I thought it was hilarious. Obviously, because one, Roman Reigns is telling the truth. Two, it was hilarious because what really, really made me laugh about it was, of course, you've got Paul Heyman there, who is the former executive director of Raw. Even Paul Heyman and his creative genius, if you want to agree with that or not, I'm kind of in the middle on that one. But even Paul Heyman himself couldn't save that show and couldn't turn that ship around. Obviously, pandemic had a part to do with it, but it certainly is a factor too. But there's no doubt that segment really did have a real levity to it. It had that ick factor. It had a big segment feel. Seeing Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre facing off, and arguably they're the two of the biggest stars in WWE right now. Definitely the two biggest stars of maybe this sort of era that we're in right now. Of course, Drew McIntyre's rise over the last sort of 12 months has been pretty meteoric, and I think he did a fantastic job as WWE Champion. Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns. He's obviously the face of this generation. He's taken the mantle, I suppose, from John Cena as the guy in WWE. He's doing his best work of his career now. This new heel run has been absolutely stupendous, fantastic, whatever superlative you want to use. It's really been that good. And the segment of having Drew McIntyre facing off with Roman Reigns on SmackDown, I think it did whet the appetite for a lot of people. It really was WrestleMania worthy. It felt WrestleMania worthy. Suddenly a lot of people started to say, you know what? Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns, that is a match. That is really a match that I want to see. And I think it really sort of opened people's eyes, shall we say, as to I really want to see that match. I think a lot of people, myself included, were very excited for Survivor Series on Sunday to see Roman Reigns, Randy Orton. It was very exciting. And people were sort of thinking, okay, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, they haven't faced each other a million times. They haven't had feuds a million times. I think their most significant feud I can think of was at SummerSlam 2014, before Roman Reigns really turned into the big Roman Reigns single star. It was kind of the push that they were moving him in that direction just post-Shield. And I think a lot of people were excited to see this version of Roman Reigns face this version of Randy Orton. But now, after you had Drew McIntyre on SmackDown on Friday, I do think the segment turned a lot of people's heads. I really do. And then you start to look at the situation when it comes to Roman Reigns and Randy Orton. You start to reassess things. Wow, it is a heel versus heel match. Are they willing to do that? Would they do that? They did it a couple of years ago. 2018, Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar was a heel match. Daniel Bryan had just turned heel on SmackDown, defeating AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. So you had a heel Daniel Bryan versus a heel Brock Lesnar. And the match itself, storyline-wise, was a little bit of a throwaway. I really enjoyed the match. I thought the match was brilliant. I thought it was fantastic and very, very exciting. But now people are saying, well, it's actually a heel match. Orton versus Reigns would make sense for McIntyre to win. And then they've seen the segment on Friday and said, actually, maybe the match I want to see more is Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns as opposed to Randy Orton, Roman Reigns. I think the segment on Friday, in terms of the fans' perspective, certainly did turn a few people's heads, I think. And maybe started to question, well, what if? What if we did see a title change on Monday? And because Drew McIntyre came out and confronted Roman Reigns on SmackDown on Friday, people are saying, well, maybe they are setting up a title change on Monday, because why would they invest that TV time in having Drew McIntyre square off with Roman Reigns? Maybe they are laying the foundation for something to happen tonight on Raw and setting up the foundation for the match at Survivor Series on Sunday. Now, in terms of could we see a title change tonight, personally, myself, I don't think we will. I still think the plan is to have Randy Orton versus Edge at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. WrestleVotes posted a really interesting tweet today. If you're not familiar with WrestleVotes, very reputable insider wrestling, WWE specifically, Twitter account. They very, very, very rarely get things wrong. They've got a fantastic track record. They do quality over quantity. They posted a tweet today that basically said they've heard from multiple people that the plan for the last few months, and still is right now, to do Edge versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. However, there have been more and more discussions about possibly doing Edge versus The Fiend at WrestleMania. Now, I don't think they will shift from the original plan to do Randy Orton versus Edge at WrestleMania. I think that's what they will do. Even if they don't do it at WrestleMania, they will pay it off at the Royal Rumble of doing Edge versus Randy Orton. Therefore, Randy Orton needs to be the WWE Champion to do that story. So, I don't think we're going to get a title change tonight for a variety of reasons. One, as I mentioned, because of the Edge storyline, because of the likelihood that Edge versus Randy Orton, when Edge returns, is going to be for the WWE Championship. So I don't see Randy Orton dropping it anytime soon for that reason. In addition to that, Randy Orton has just won the WWE Championship. Why would you have him win the title at Hell in a Cell only to drop it a couple of weeks later on Monday Night Raw, unless, of course, WWE has changed their mind when it comes to creative plans? Wouldn't be the first time, but bear in mind, Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, as I mentioned, they've been feuding for months. Randy Orton has already lost twice to Drew McIntyre. He lost at SummerSlam, the backslide. He got pinned clean. At Clash of Champions, he lost the ambulance match. Yes, there was interference there, but he lost. After that, in the interim period, he lost to Keith Lee at Payback. And then finally, he beat Drew McIntyre at Hell in a Cell. But he was on a bit of a losing streak when it comes to pay-per-views at that point. So you have to consider that if you've got this upcoming WrestleMania big match or Royal Rumble big match of Edge, you're the WWE Champion, you can't be losing all the time. You just can't. You have to be built up. So again, it doesn't make sense for him to lose tonight, because how many losses can Randy Orton do? I know it's Randy Orton, and I know that Randy Orton essentially is bulletproof. He can do a job. It doesn't hurt him. He's a big star regardless. Nevertheless, you can't go into a big program, or you can't go into a big WrestleMania or Royal Rumble WWE Championship match by losing all the time. You just can't. He's being built up for that big money match against Edge. So I just don't see him losing tonight. I just don't see him dropping the WWE Championship. There's a lot of discussions that maybe Edge versus Randy Orton, it could even be the main event of WrestleMania. Now, personally, I don't think it's going to be the main event. I think it's going to be a main event match. I don't think it's going to be the main event of the show. I think that depends on what happens with Roman Reigns and his storyline on SmackDown. If he's going to face The Rock, or if he's going to face the winner of the Royal Rumble. People are saying Big E. Could be a crowner moment for Big E. Who knows? Regardless, I think that a main event match at WrestleMania will be Randy Orton versus Edge for the WWE Championship. Therefore, I just can't see Randy Orton dropping that WWE Championship anytime soon. Nevertheless, though, you have to look at Drew McIntyre's appearance on SmackDown on Friday, and it absolutely served its purpose. It did exactly what it was meant to do, and that's get people thinking about this WWE Championship match and get people thinking about Survivor Series. The McIntyre appearance served its purpose. Last week, when this WWE Championship rematch was announced on Raw, nobody thought that Drew McIntyre was going to win the championship back. Most people assumed it's just there, it's to do the rematch. We're still going to have Randy Orton Reigns. We're going to get Randy Orton Edge. That's what we're getting going forward. But after this appearance by Drew McIntyre on SmackDown on Friday, now you have a pocket of people that are thinking, you know what, it might be possible. We might get that title switch on Monday. If that's the case, and even it's got a fraction of people watching SmackDown on Friday, more people watch SmackDown than Raw. If it's got a fraction of people thinking, oh, on Monday they're going to have a WWE Championship match and we might see a title change, and it even gets, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000 people watching SmackDown that don't watch Raw to tune into the USA Network tonight, it served its purpose. It served its purpose. I think the purpose of putting a WWE Championship match on the go-home edition to Survivor Series is an attempt to drive ratings. It's an attempt to get people to watch this episode of Raw. It's an attempt to get people to watch Survivor Series and sign up to the network. It's all about driving people to watch Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, this WWE Championship and this attempt to drive ratings to watch the show tonight won't save Monday Night Raw. Nothing can save Monday Night Raw apart from fundamental change and a radical overhaul of the product and the presentation of this show, the format of this show. It's 3 hours long. First of all, however long Raw remains 3 hours, it will never be saved in terms of the ratings. The ratings will continue to go down. Pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, the ratings will continue to go down. That's what's been happening for years. The pandemic just sped that up about 5 years. That's all the pandemic has done. The ratings were going down regardless. And it has to do with 3 hours. And obviously, the ratings were going down prior to becoming 3 hours, but like every change that has happened to WWE programming, it's just sped up the process. 3 hours going to 3 hours, it sped up the process of going downhill in terms of the ratings. The pandemic sped up things in terms of the downfall of the ratings, and that's always what it will be. And in addition to being a 3 hour show, which is such a drag to watch, you've got the bad writing, you've got the bad scripting, you've got, it feels like every week, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's the case, every week you get the story about 2 hours before Monday Night Raw that we're getting rewrites before Raw goes on the air, or the Raw script gets finished 30 minutes before we go on the air, or the second and third hour are being completed as the first hour is on the air right now. It's every week. And nothing can save Raw if it's always going to be in that case. Last week, I recorded a Raw preview about a segment which was a moment of bliss hosted by Alexa Bliss with Drew McIntyre. I posted it, and before when it went live on YouTube, the segment had already been cancelled because of rewrites. You couldn't make that up. That's what happens every Monday night. It feels like it happens every Monday night. So nothing can save Raw as long as it's 3 hours. If you could ever cut it down in terms of becoming a 2-hour show once again, I don't even think even then the ratings would drastically improve anyway because of the structure that's in place. Just again, because of the way that promos are done, because of scripting, because of the way Vince McMahon rips up the script an hour before the show goes on the air. In addition to that, you have to look at the network that it's on. The USA Network, it's not the cable force that it used to be. It really, really isn't. If you look at the cable ratings and the viewership of cable networks, USA Networks, it's far below than it used to think. I think, not even sure it's in the top 10 now. I think 2020 or 2019 was the first year it fell out of the top 10 cable networks. So the USA Network isn't the force that it used to be either. And the USA Network desperately needs WWE to stay on the network, because the WWE, regardless of how bad ratings Raw is and the WWE's ratings are, they're still the highest that USA Network gets on their network. That is why the USA Network pays Raw and WWE a ton of money to have Monday Night Raw, because they need them. They need them. That's why Raw will always remain 3 hours, because USA Network pays WWE a ton of money for that third hour. Why? Because even though the third hour rating of Raw is terrible, it's still more viewers than USA Network would normally get for that 10 to 11 p.m. slot. Any other original programming they would have wouldn't get the ratings that WWE Monday Night Raw does. So USA Network pays Raw very, very highly to keep that third hour there, because they need it. They need it. And I saw a report by Vince Russo last week as on the Sportskeeda post show for Monday Night Raw, saying that USA Network doesn't care about WWE and Raw anymore and they don't need them and it's not an interest. That's BS. It just isn't true. That isn't true. Look at the figures. Look at the figures out there, and look at the deal that NBC Universal has with WWE. They pay them a ton of money. Why? Because they need them. They need them. That's why. So getting back to this WWE Championship match, I suppose you have to question, does The Fiend get involved here as well? We know that The Fiend is stalking Randy Orton when it comes to the WWE Championship. We know about their past. We know about Randy Orton's past as part of the Wyatt family. The Fiend hasn't forgot. Alexa Bliss has been teasing Randy Orton in previous weeks. Bray Wyatt has been hinting that he will be going after Randy Orton soon. I think so. You could possibly get The Fiend get involved in this match. You have to factor in as well, at the moment, Drew McIntyre isn't doing anything at Survivor Series as well. So if he doesn't win tonight, what's his status for Sunday? Does he just not appear at the pay-per-view? Would be the first pay-per-view, gosh, I don't know in how long, that Drew McIntyre wouldn't make an appearance at. Actually, not that long would be Payback, because he wasn't at Payback over the summer. So that record's stupid. I suppose when it comes to The Fiend, obviously Sunday, a lot of people speculating with the final farewell of The Undertaker, we could see something Fiend/Undertaker related if The Undertaker's retirement isn't indeed legitimate. I think it is. Of course, in this match tonight as well, we could see Alexa Bliss get involved. As I mentioned, Alexa Bliss has been one of the moving parts in this sort of bizarre mixed WWE Championship picture at the moment, with Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, The Fiend, Alexa Bliss, The Miz, John Morrison. There are so many names involved in there, and Alexa Bliss has really been stirring things up. She's kind of been the go-between between Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, and The Fiend. She's been the one sort of giving The Fiend's message. So in terms of a prediction for tonight's WWE Championship match, personally, I don't think we're going to see a title change, but also I don't think Randy Orton is going to retain the WWE Championship clean. I don't think he's going to pin Drew McIntyre clean like he did at Hell in a Cell. I don't think it's going to be an RKO and a 1-2-3 and Randy Orton goes to Survivor Series. Personally, I think we're going to see The Fiend or Alexa Bliss get involved in this match. WWE at this point doesn't care about not delivering a match that they've advertised. They don't care about giving satisfying finishes. They don't care about giving clean finishes. WWE lives off doing non-finishes, no contests, disqualifications, countouts, screwy finishes, roll-ups. That is the majority of a WWE finish in a wrestling match nowadays. I mean, how many times do we see a roll-up? How many times do we see a DQ? How many times do we... It's not a DQ, it's a no contest. How many times do we see anything like that? How many times do we see them advertise a match that they just don't deliver? In the end, we see it all the time. So WWE has no issue at all in advertising a match and not delivering it. Now, we will get a WWE Championship match tonight, but I don't think we're going to see a clean finish. I don't think we're going to see Randy Orton get do a punt kick or an RKO and get a 1-2-3. I think someone gets involved. I think The Fiend attacks Drew McIntyre, or The Fiend attacks Randy Orton. It looks to me like The Fiend versus Randy Orton is the next feud on the docket for the WWE Championship post-Survivor Series. I've said that going into TLC in December. I think we'll see The Fiend versus Randy Orton, or The Fiend versus Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. I just don't see a scenario where WWE would realistically do a clean finish tonight. I just can't see it. I really can't see it. Now, also, you have to factor in Drew McIntyre showed up to SmackDown on Friday, so possibly we could have Roman Reigns show up to Raw tonight on Monday. Perhaps Roman Reigns shows up, attacks both men, and we have a no contest. Perhaps we have a SmackDown invasion. As I mentioned at the start of the video, apart from Drew McIntyre appearing on SmackDown, we haven't had a lot of crossover between Raw and SmackDown. Perhaps we get the customary SmackDown invasion on Raw and the Raw invasion on SmackDown on the go-home editions of Raw and SmackDown as we head into Survivor Series. We always get that. It feels like we always get that. We always get the, I can't believe SmackDown have invaded Raw. I can't believe Raw have invaded SmackDown. It's not like it happens every year, even though it does. So perhaps we could get that. That's how we get the no contest. I think back to Triple H versus Eddie Guerrero at the 2004 WWE draft. That was for the WWE Championship and ended in a no contest because Raw brawled with SmackDown at the end of that. Perhaps we get the same sort of situation tonight on Monday Night Raw as well. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, what about The Miz? Will The Miz cash in? I don't think The Miz is cashing in. I think that maybe we could see an attempt by The Miz. Maybe The Miz attacks Randy Orton with the Money in the Bank briefcase, or maybe Drew McIntyre hits Randy Orton with a Claymore. Then The Miz attacks Drew McIntyre with the Money in the Bank briefcase, attempts to cash in there. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think The Miz is going to cash in 2020. I think he's going to cash in 2021. I'm still thinking Edge wins the WWE Championship at WrestleMania and The Miz cashes in the following night on the Raw after Mania. I think that would be such a huge moment and a way to nicely write out Edge of being WWE Champion, because he's not going to be a full-time WWE Champion. That's just not happening. So I think that's potential. I'm still sticking to that. Even at this point, I'm still sticking to that. So I would be stunned if we got a clean finish. McIntyre is booked ridiculously strong, and Randy Orton just can't afford to do a job. Another one at this point. So I would be stunned if Orton lost the WWE Championship on the first defense. So I'm going with a screw finish, a non-finish, interference. Either way, I would be absolutely floored if we got a clean finish tonight. So I just can't see it happening. I don't think it's going to happen. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the WWE Championship match between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre tonight on Monday Night Raw on the Go Home edition of Raw as we head into Survivor Series on Sunday? Let me know your thoughts on Raw on the Go Home edition and Survivor Series in the comments section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Monday Night Raw, so be sure to leave a comment below and I'll be sure to reply to it. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. So be sure to click that like button. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. So be sure to click that bottom right hand corner, click that notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for the watch along for Survivor Series on Sunday, or any of the watch alongs that we do, in addition to the daily videos that we upload to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.